All right. How's everyone doing? I am Rich CELENZA. Thanks for tuning into the Rich CELENZA Show. So what I'm going to call this podcast is Being Naive Made Me More Creative. Again, wacky title, but I'm going to kind of break this down very simply for you. And that is, there's a funny, I don't know if you ever heard this joke. It kind of relates to two different things. It sometimes says, it goes by, God protects the drunk. A lot of, I don't know if you ever heard that. Maybe you might have heard this one. God protects the dumb. Whatever, it's just a joke saying. Hopefully nobody's getting offended. And if you are, what the fuck? Lighten up. But, back to me being naive, I think one of the gifts I have is that I've been around adults my whole life. So I kind of think like an adult. There's no question. But I don't know what the other side of me is, but I'm also extremely naive like a child. Even my personality at times. And I remember this, I'm going to just start with this. When I was wanting to make a film, I really thought making movies was kind of easy. I had no goddamn idea. That's how naive I was. I literally used to have discussions with my buddies because I always wanted to make a movie. And we'd be like, how hard can it be? You set a goddamn camera up, you got some lines you want to read, and you shoot it in the location you want to shoot it at and dress the way you want. And it's over. Who gives a shit? Oh my God, was I nuts. I couldn't have been more off. And I realized that on my first film. I'm not going to get into how overwhelmed I got making my first film, because I talk about this. I don't sometimes jump into a pool, feet first. I jump into an empty pool head first. That's what I do sometimes. Again, it's probably ego and confidence that I think I can do anything that I want to do, right? That was that. And, again, even writing screenplays, I just wrote them. I didn't care how long it took. I didn't care who liked them. I mean, of course, I'd like people to like them. I'd write them. I would just keep writing and spend hours and weeks and months on my free time just creating shit constantly. And back to just being naive. And even when it came to writing books, to this day, so I wrote 2 books, which makes absolutely no sense to me. And I spent years writing them. Believe me when I tell you. And if I think anybody reasonable would be like, oh my God, what are you doing, dude? You know how much time and effort? I don't care. That's where the naiveness comes in. I know so many people, and this includes doctors, lawyers, people in many different industries, entertainment, construction, I don't give a shit, there's hundreds out there, that were always talking about doing shit. But they almost talk themselves out of it. You know this, the talkers, not the doers. I'm kind of the doer, there's no question about that, which can be good or bad. But I think I'm a doer because I'm naive. That doesn't mean I don't have any idea what I'm getting into. But for some reason, the naiveness works for me. Not always financially, but as far as creativity for me. That doesn't mean I'm I'm on the New York's bestsellers list. That doesn't mean I'm making films that are in Hollywood making hundreds of millions of dollars. I'll tell you straight up, that's not me. Even starting a YouTube and podcast, I probably am going to build a decent following because that's a good platform for me. Even getting into that was way whack. Had no idea I was going to do it. Since I'm on the subject, I had a young engineer working on my program, Mastering Self-Confidence. He's telling me, which I never wanted to be in front of the camera again, I kind of wanted to do the podcast idea. I liked it. We started with that a little bit, and he's like, no, get in front of the camera. I kept calling him an asshole. He was kind of goofing around, shooting me, and I was doing it, and I ended up traveling again and just doing some videos, just doing gym tours or going to restaurants and just kind of just filling the void because I was sick of writing. And I created the program. We're getting ready to market that. And I just, again, being naive, fell into it. Doing the podcast again and YouTube, even though I always wanted to do it. But being naive and thinking it's going to be simple, which it is not simple. Nothing is simple. But I am going to tell you what I did. Out of all the bullshit I've learned, and I may do a podcast, I keep forgetting it, is trimming the fat. So I'm not naive enough to say anymore, I want it to be at this level or that level, and I want all this and I want all that. Because after making a couple films, even writing a couple books, bunch of screenplays, creating an app, and all this other shit I do, and a clothing line, all this, creating a clothing line, how whack was that? Again, I was naive. I'm thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to have all these logos, I'm going to do extreme sports, I'm going to do mainstream sports, it's going to be this and that. I created it. But where I fell short a lot of times is I kind of jump from one thing to the next, which I'm not going to get into that right now. But back to my naiveness. I'm here to tell you, sometimes you may want to just go into something almost blind. And people may say you're an asshole. Don't tell anybody that. You got to research and you got to study and you got to figure it out. You got to read books. You got to do this. You got to do that. And that's one podcast I want to do. I am so sick of fucking people telling me or anyone else, you gotta. You gotta what? Most people telling you gotta, don't get me wrong, some are successful. They don't live your life. You don't got to do shit. You got to figure out a plan that works best for you. That's what you got to do. Don't get caught up in letting everybody else always tell you what you got to do. And I get a lot of people are helpful, but it's like on YouTube, how to build your YouTube following, right? You go on there, there's 10,000 videos, there's millions of videos on how to build your subscribers, how to build a bigger following, right? Each one of them has a different angle on it. I mean, some have some similar things, but everybody else says, I did this and it worked for me. I did this, that worked for me. I tried this. They're not all telling you that they live entirely different lives. They're working with entirely different budgets, entirely different ways about how to do certain things. But back to the naiveness, I'm not saying go into things stupidly. I'm not saying that, or not knowing anything about what you want to go into. But if you do want to write a goddamn book, just start writing shit down, or at least talking into, say, a voice memo. I tell people, you want to start a podcast? Start it. You don't have to be Joe Rogan. I'm just telling you right now. Start talking into a fucking mic. No one gives a shit. I'm going to tell you, very few people are going to be listening to you anyways, besides your family members, friends, and colleagues at the beginning. You'll learn that very quickly. I'm just telling you. Same with YouTube. Same with a business. Just go sometimes start it. Now, I'm not saying take all your money and invest it and get destroyed. That is the last thing I'm telling you, so we're clear. But if you do want to start a business, a website, or whatever the case may be, just start. Just learning about it again. But again, just keep moving forward and doing something. Don't get so caught up. And I know so many of these dudes, they want to write a book. They'll read 10 books on how to write a book. I'm not kidding you. They'll watch countless hours of how to watch things on YouTube, how to write a book. How's this again? And I'm just using a book for an example. Write down all the shit you want to write down, for starters. Okay? Then hire an editor. They're going to help you get through that. If you don't have money for an editor, maybe you can work something out with an editor. I don't care if you're a mechanic. I don't care if you're a mortgage broker. Whatever the case may be, make it work. If that doesn't work, right, maybe try to find an intern or whatever the case may be. But let's not even worry sometimes about the end, which is getting an editor. Let's first get the material on the paper. So many people are worried about the end a lot of times. And I get it. Like in the film business, distribution a lot of times, which, you got to worry about where's your film going to go before making it. I get it a lot of times. I didn't necessarily, kind of a bad move. What's interesting now, though, I'm going to tell you is if you make a film, you can probably market it and sell it yourself. Now, I don't know how much money you're going to make, but what I'm saying is you have different outlets. You don't have to worry necessarily about a distribution company coming to pick it up to make it successful. You never know. But again, sometimes just also, and I'm going to wrap it up with this because I don't want these things to go past 10 minutes. Being naive in the point where stop having unrealistic expectations, I guess. A lot of people think if I'm going to write this book, I got to be on New York's bestsellers list, right? If I write this, it's got to be at that level. It's got to blow everyone away. It's got to be so unique. It's got to be, my cover's got to be great. And it's got to be this long, and I got to touch every subject matter, and I got to listen, I'm going to tell you right now, most likely what you're going to write has already been written. Okay? A lot of things you want to do in your life has already been done. You may be the best ever. I'm not saying you're not, but then again, you know what I mean? You may be just average. Who gives a shit? If you get too caught up, sometimes, again, it's overthinking it is basically what I'm trying to say. Don't do it to yourself. Go in, enjoy it, have a fun time along the ride. And I know a lot of people may disagree with me and say, no, Rich, you have got to prepare and then prepare more and then over-prepare and then make sure that everything is lined up correctly for you to do this or that. If you want to do that, God bless you. But I'm going to tell you a lot of times, a lot of things that you want to get accomplished are not going to get accomplished. And the one thing I say, can't say the one of the things I get asked the most is, how do you get as much done as you get done? And I tell them, because I'm a sloth. And if that makes, I'm kind of the turtle. I am not the one that is going to kind of, I guess you could say, like, I just do. And you just look at yourself for now as a doer, not a waiter around, not a talker, not a bullshitter, not coming up with every excuse. Stop looking at the problems and just come up with the solution. And just figure it out along the way, because I can assure you where you start and where you end up are going to be in two completely, where you end up is going to be so different than where you thought you'd end up. You may end up in a much better position. You may end up in a horrible position. You may be like, oh my God, I just wasted 2 years of my life writing this book and no one wants to read it. Boo-hoo for you. No one gives a shit. But I can assure you one thing, you learned a lot about yourself, educated yourself, you may have met new people. You don't realize too, a lot of times you're educating yourself even when you're doing things that you fail with. So I'm going to wrap it up there. I hit the 10-minute mark. Let's get the hell out of here. All right, if you get a chance, check out my YouTube channel. Just my name, Rich CELENZA. I got a Mastering Self-Confidence program out there, masteringselfconfidence.com, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I always say that shit at the end. Check that out as well. Oh, my books. One's called The Model Bible, unless you're in the fashion industry and you want to be a model, a female model, which my audience is mainly male now, so I don't think that's going to work as far as my podcast and YouTube. But I have Wingman. Wingman, that's a must-have guide to find the woman, a guideline to find the woman of your dreams. I go through many different things in that book if you like reading. And you know what? Hit me up, man. Most of the time I like sending my books out for free. I just do. That's half the battle with me. But if you're interested in reading either one of my books, please hit me up. I'd love to send it to you. I don't get caught up in the shit. You can also buy it. It's everywhere. Amazon. It's on iBooks. What is that? It's, Apple, Barnes and Nobles. It's all over the place. Just Google it with my name. And yeah, that's all I really got for you. Take care, and I wish you nothing but the best.